Have you ever had those moments where you wonder, am I actually healing or am I just circling the same mountain again and again? You're doing the work, you're showing up for therapy or coaching sessions, reading, journaling, breathing, but some days it feels like nothing's changing. And if that feels familiar, I want to share something that might shift how you see yourself today. See, healing doesn't always announce itself in big, dramatic moments, and it doesn't always feel like a breakthrough or a brand new chapter. More often, healing begins quietly, at the edges of your awareness. It's the small moments that are easy to miss. Moments like you paused before reacting, you reached out instead of withdrawing, you felt a flicker of hope where there used to be only fear. See, these aren't coincidences. Those are signs that your nervous system is slowly learning safety again. And they're the edges of healing. They're subtle, but they are sacred. Hi, I'm Janine Naus, your grief and trauma relief specialist, and I'm so glad you're here with me today because this conversation, this exact moment, might be one of those subtle shifts for you. The moment where you start realizing healing isn't about perfection or constant progress. It's about awareness. And it's about noticing where things are beginning to move, even if they're not yet where you want them to be. So if you've ever doubted your progress or felt like your growth is invisible, this session is for you. So together we're going to explore how to recognize those quiet signs of change, the ones that start at the edges of your healing will ripple into everything else. Now let's take a slow breath together and exhale gently. Wonderful. Now let's begin by understanding why healing often starts at the edges and how you can start noticing those signs in your own life. And that's where we'll begin. So, when you've lived through trauma, your body and mind are trained to notice what's wrong, not what's working. Your nervous system was wired for survival, scanning for danger, not growth. So even when healing begins, you might not recognize it. It doesn't always show up as joy, confidence, or calm right away. Sometimes it looks like exhaustion after setting a boundary, tears after speaking your truth, a moment of quiet where you used to spiral. See, those moments don't mean you're failing. They're, they mean you're feeling. And feeling again is one of the very first signs that healing is happening. Healing starts at the edges, in those barely noticeable shifts that often go unseen. You might catch yourself thinking, that didn't bother me as much this time. I actually said no and didn't apologize. I took a break before I burned out. Those are small victories, but they're also sacred milestones. So think of your healing like dawn. It doesn't arrive in one instant of sunlight. It begins slowly, with faint light at the edges of the horizon. And even before the full sun rises, the world is already changing. That's because, well, that's what's happening inside of you. So when you notice those small flickers of awareness, that's your dawn. I want to invite you to reflect for a moment. Can you think of one small shift lately? Something you did or felt that you might have overlooked because it seemed too small to count. That moment might be one of the edges of your healing. Quiet proof that things are shifting, even if you can't see the full picture yet. So let's go a little deeper into why these small changes can feel so invisible and how to start trusting that they really do mean you're growing. See, one of the hardest parts of trauma recovery is that progress doesn't always feel like progress. You might be growing, changing, and healing, but your mind can still tell you that nothing's happening. That's because your nervous system has spent years, sometimes decades, focusing on threat and protection. And it learned to measure safety by how well you could predict pain, not by how much peace you could feel. So when things start to shift, when you're calmer, softer, or more open, your brain doesn't quite know how to interpret that yet. And it can feel uncomfortable, even unfamiliar. And what's unfamiliar can feel unsafe. So, this is why those small, quiet moments of healing can feel invisible or even confusing. And you might think, why do I still feel anxious? Or shouldn't I be over this by now? But what's really happening is your system is relearning safety. It's testing. Can I stay open to this moment? Can I breathe through this feeling? Can I trust this calm? Healing is not a straight line, it's more like waves, and they're expanding and receding, building your capacity for peace a little more each time. So if you've been judging yourself for not seeing huge change, please hear this. The fact that you're noticing anything at all means you're already in the process. Awareness itself is progress. And I want to invite you to notice this with me for a moment. Can you think of one area of your life that feels just a little different than it used to? Maybe it's how you speak to yourself or how quickly you come back from a difficult day. That's where your healing is happening. It may be quiet, but it's real. In fact, I'd like to share a personal story about how I began to notice my own healing, not in the big breakthroughs, but in the quiet spaces at the edges of my awareness. There was a time in my healing journey when I couldn't see any progress at all. And I was showing up for, my therapy sessions, my coaching sessions, and journaling and doing my breath work. And I still felt stuck in the same cycles. So I remembered thinking, why am I still feeling this way if I'm doing all the right things? Now, it was frustrating. It felt like I was broken beyond repair. But over time, something subtle began to shift, not all at once, but around those edges. See, one morning I noticed I didn't wake up with that same heavy weight on my chest. And another day, I caught myself laughing. I mean, really laughing, and realized it had been months since I had done that. And then there was the moment I said no to something that didn't feel right and didn't immediately spiral into guilt afterwards. See, those were my edges. They were small moments, quiet changes, but they were evidence that healing was taking root. Now, I didn't see it at first because I was looking for the big transformation, the kind that feels like a before and after moment. But what I've learned is that healing is less like a lightning bolt and more like the sunrise, gradual, gentle, and full of color when you finally stop to notice. And now, when I look back, I realize those small moments, the laughter, the no, the lightness, were the beginning of me coming home to myself. That's why I want to help you begin noticing those moments in your own life too. Because when you start to see them, everything changes. So, I want to guide you through a simple practice you can use to recognize your own edges of growth and begin trusting that you're already healing, even when you can't yet see it. So, I'd like to invite you into a simple practice that I call edge awareness. It's about learning to notice, without judgment, where healing is quietly unfolding in your life. Now, let's take a slow, steady breath in together. Beautiful. Now exhale it gently. Now bring to mind one area of your life where you've been wanting to feel change. Maybe it's your relationships, your confidence, your boundaries, or your peace of mind. Don't force an answer. Just see what naturally comes to you. Now ask yourself this question. Where do I notice even the smallest shift? Where something that used to feel impossible now feels a little lighter, a little easier. Now, it might be that you're speaking more kindly to yourself. Maybe you're not reacting as quickly when triggered. Or maybe you've simply started to rest more without needing to earn it. Whatever comes up, I want you to just notice it. You don't need to label it as big or small, good or bad. Just breathe and acknowledge that it's there. That awareness is powerful because every time you notice a shift, no matter how subtle, you're teaching your nervous system that safety and progress can coexist. And this is how healing grows, through noticing, not forcing. When you start to see the edges of your healing, you build trust within yourself, and that trust becomes the foundation for deeper transformation. Now, you might even begin to realize that healing isn't something that far away that you have to reach for. It's already happening right here at the edges of your awareness. And to help you deepen that awareness even more, I'd love to give you a journaling prompt you can take with you after this session. Now that you've connected with what's quietly changing in your life, I'd love for you to take a few moments later today, or even right after this session, to journal about it. See, journaling is a way to honor your own awareness, and it slows the mind, creates space for self-compassion, and helps you see what's already shifting beneath the surface. So here's your prompt for today. I'll say it slowly so you can write it down. Where do I notice small shifts or new growth happening at the edges of my healing? And what might it be? What might they be trying to show me? So let's repeat that. I'd like to do that again for you so you can write that down. Where do I notice small shifts or new growth happening at the edges of my healing? And what might they be trying to show me? Now, you don't have to find the perfect answer, and this prompt isn't about fixing anything. It's about noticing and acknowledging what's already unfolding. Maybe it's a change in how you talk to yourself, how you set boundaries, or how quickly you recover from emotional triggers. Whatever comes through your pen, trust that it's exactly what your heart is ready to reveal. And if this exercise stirs something inside you, maybe a spark of hope, a sense of curiosity, or a realization you hadn't seen before, that's your inner wisdom speaking. That's the part of you that already knows the way forward. If you'd like to explore that next step together, I'd love to share how we can do that. Let's talk about that now. If something in today's session spoke to you, and if you found yourself realizing that healing might already be happening in small ways, I want you to know that this awareness is a powerful beginning. And you don't have to explore it alone. That's exactly why I created the Healing Clarity Session, a free 30-minute heart-centered conversation designed to help you understand what's shifting and what your next step might be. Here's what we'll do together inside that space. We'll identify one area of your life where change is starting to happen, even if it's subtle or hard to trust. And then we'll uncover what's supporting or slowing that growth with compassion and without judgment. Then we'll discover one gentle, practical step you can take right away to keep your healing moving forward in a way that feels safe for your body and your heart. This isn't about doing more, it's about noticing more. It's about realizing that growth doesn't have to be loud to be real. If you're ready to explore your own edges of healing and gain clarity on what's unfolding next, I'd love to meet you there. Schedule your free healing clarity session by clicking the link below. Now remember, healing doesn't require giant leaps. It begins with one small, courageous yes, and maybe this call is yours. Thank you for spending this time with me today, and keep noticing your edges, your growth, and the quiet ways you're becoming more of yourself every day. You're healing if you can't, even if you can't see it yet. Before you go, I want you to remember this. Healing isn't something that suddenly appears one day fully formed. It unfolds quietly, one small moment at a time. Every breath, every boundary, every pause before reacting, those are your signs of growth. They're proof that you're changing, even when it feels invisible. Now, if today's session helped you notice even one of those subtle shifts, I invite you to subscribe so you'll never miss another healing step session. And each week, we walk this path together, learning how to trust, soften, and reconnect with your wholeness. And if this message resonated, I think really love my video, Too Much or Not Enough, Healing the Fear of Being Yourself After Trauma. Now, in that session, we explore how trauma teaches us to hide and how to gently begin showing up as your true self again. So you can watch it right here. Just click the link in your screen. And remember, your healing is happening. Even if it's quiet, keep noticing the edges because that's where the light always begins. Thank you.